Yeah, my friends, it's that time when we offer you Between Us. That's me, Paul Ross, and Van Connor, our main man when it comes to all matters movie-related on your Freeview channels. We offer you 6 Freeview film recommendations between us, 3 from Van, 3 from me. You don't have to pay your money because it's Freeview, but you can make your own choice. As we say, good morning, welcome back to Van Connor. Van, before we start, one question. I'm beyond excited at the prospect of seeing Napoleon, directed by Ridley Scott. Have you seen has there been screenings of it yet? Have you seen it yet?
No, the first screenings of this next week. In fact, it's a week today. So I'm going to be speaking to you next week, fresh from having seen Napoleon. So I will, unless I'm embargoed to hell, I don't think I'm going to be. I should be able to give you an opinion next week.
Well, we should sort out some code words before, maybe. If it's an absolute triumph, we should say codfish. If you think it's okay, say haddock. And if it's a rare Ridley Scott misfire, we say what? Saveloy chips. If I ask what you've had for supper.
Exactly that.
That's our code. Without breaking any embargoes, of course. Unless, of course, the film company are listening, in which case we won't mention it at all. Anyway, let's start with your first recommendation for the weekend. An interesting science fiction choice you've given to kick us off this weekend.
Yeah, this one's kind of a hot take. This is like saying you like The Last Jedi in a sense, albeit the movie isn't quite as highbrow as The Last Jedi. So it's Star Trek Into Darkness from 2013. This was the second chapter of the 3-part J.J. Abrams alternate timeline Star Trek universe, known to fans as the Kelvin timeline. The basic idea, if you're not in on this already, is that a time-traveling villain kills Kirk's dad and basically creates an alternate timeline where you get a new, younger, sexier Kirk, and Spock, and Zoe Saldana gets to be Uhura, things like that. This is the second installment in which they get to basically do their alternate version of the Wrath of Khan. Although, at the time, they didn't market it as that. They wrapped it up in this big J.J. Abrams mystery thing about the Enterprise being dispatched to track down a terrorist who'd attacked Starfleet headquarters, and said terrorist was played by Benedict Cumberbatch. He was a mysterious man named John Harrison, but that wasn't really his name, and what was it? And everybody knew going into the movie, well, it's going to be Khan, isn't it? And, So yeah, it's a new version of Wrath of Khan, but Wrath of Khan with an added dash of the War on Terror, because that's literally the subtext they're going for here. You can see this tonight on Film 4 at the surprisingly efficient tea time friendly slot of 6:25. It's a pretty good 12A, sci-fi actioner, so it's pretty good for a tea time watch, I think, or pre-gaming before you go out on the lash for the night.
Very nice. Okay, so you've got a clip for us, I understand, called Star Trek Insurrection, the Wrath of Khan in brackets. It should be there, really.
Insurrection, Wrath of Khan in brackets. Exactly. That works very well, actually. Yes, I've got a clip for you. This is Film 4 tonight, 6:25. This is Benedict Cumberbatch doing his grand reveal.
Here we go.
Data says it was highly volatile. If it were to erupt, it would wipe out the planet.
Let's hope it doesn't, sir.
Something tells me it won't.
Well, sir, volatile is all relative. Maybe our data was off.
Or maybe it didn't erupt because Mr. Spock detonated a cold fusion device inside it right after a civilization that's barely invented the wheel happened to see a starship rising out of their ocean. That is pretty much how you describe it, is it not?
Admiral, I have the report.
Why didn't you tell me?
I incorrectly assumed that you would be truthful in your captain's log.
Yeah, I would have been if I didn't have to save your life.
A fact for which I am immeasurably grateful, and the very reason I felt it necessary to take responsibility for the actions
Responsibility, yeah. That'd be so noble, Pointy, if you weren't also throwing me under the bus.
Pointy? Is that a derogatory reference?
Gentlemen.
Parking the bus, not a common phrase, I'd imagine, 400 years from now, but a good choice, though, this film, a good movie, I think.
Yeah, it's good fun. I think it's quite a ride, and I'm a big fan of the Abrams Star Trek, trio we got. I'm not going to call it a trilogy because it's not really a trilogy. It's just 3 films in the saga that quite clearly is meant to be continued. I think the cast are very, very good. I think Cumberbatch, although he's, on a diversity level, not a great statement for a new version of Khan and Noonien Singh. Other than that, he plays, he's a great villain. Of course he is. He's Benedict Cumberbatch. Big shout out for my money though, for Peter Weller, in this as Admiral Marcus, who, yeah, exactly. Who gets this big badass version of the Enterprise called the Dreadnought, I think it's called, which is just awesome. It's just tons of fun. There's a small role in there as well for Noel Clarke as well, which just seems weird. It seemed weird then. It's even weirder now. But just more Abrams Star Trek. I think this is a good time. And people have issues with the third act, but I think it's a good, fun, destiny rules all kind of an adventure.
I'm absolutely with you on that one, and I hope you'll agree with me that I've chosen a rather fine comedy. Okay, it's just after midnight tonight. It's on 10 minutes past 12 on Channel 4. It was the debut film for Eddie Murphy. It teamed him up with Nick Nolte. Now, they've been kind of buddy cop films before. Of course they had. They've been TV series, Starsky and Hutch. And I think the original was a now forgotten film called Freebie and the Bean, which had James Caan when he was writing behind Alan Arkin. That inspired Starsky and Hutch. And then you've got Eddie Murphy leaping onto the small screen as a comedy giant, doing great stand-up, and he's cast as a kind of professional con man, smooth-talking thief. He's a bit of a boxer on the quiet as well. He's basically your kind of Swiss Army knife criminal, but charming with it. And he's got information that could lead to the capture of a very dangerous felon he's had past involvement with. Nick Nolte, the hard-bitten cop, great growly voice in this one. He's always got a good voice, Nick Nolte. Springs him from prison for, guess what, folks, 48 hours to try and track down the perpetrators. You must have seen this, because it's 40 years old now, folks, 41 years old, this film, but it is an absolute cracker, I think, this movie. And what a great couple of... Three of his first four films, I think, were this, Beverly Hills Cop, Trading Places, I think, and Best Defence. And even Best Defence isn't bad with Dudley Moore. The other three, what a way to arrive on a big screen. I mean, this was, as debut films go, this is going to be one of the best, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Eddie Murphy as a presence in the 1980s is one of those screen presences that just can't be rivaled. And you look at someone like Jim Carrey in the mid-1990s, for instance, is the only thing we can really think of that would compare now. I mean, for 5 minutes it seemed like Dwayne Johnson might become that person for the past decade, but it never quite happened for him. You know what I mean? Those and they can keep acting, but they'll just never retain that original presence. It's lightning in a bottle. He managed to keep it going for most of the 1980s.
And even when you hear him before you see him as the character, the lead character of this with Nick Nolte, you hear him singing his own falsetto version of Roxanne by the Police. A great 80s film, a bit large. Here's a chunk of the trailer. It's on 10 minutes past midnight tonight, so in the wee small hours, just about Saturday morning on Channel 4. It's a cracker.
They've got two killers to track down.
Toss me that piece, and he won't waste him.
They've got a kidnapping going down.
I want the money. I don't know what you're talking about. I want that Indian to snap her neck.
They've got a fortune to hunt down.
I want to know what's going on between you and Gans.
$500,000. And it's all coming down in 48 hours.
But I gave you 48 hours to come up with something, and the clock's running.
This guy got a real itchy trigger finger, and he's a nervous cop. You better listen to him. You get your brain blown out.
I'm the calm type.
Wow, I'm the calm type. It's a great punch-up between the two of them, and as they're driving off, I've read somewhere, it may not be true, that the final punch thrown by Nick Nolte when the fight's over was basically an ad-lib punch that Eddie Murphy in the first take wasn't prepared for, and he got something irate about it. Anyway, that's my first recommendation. Your second one's rather different from your first call, isn't it, I think, this weekend?
Yeah, so, I mean, this one I think would have been better if they'd timed this one like a week earlier. It's, a couple of weeks earlier. Freaky, from 2020, best described as what if Freaky Friday meets Scream. And most of my, favorite movies that I encounter these days usually are what if insert, title here, but Scream. So, we had this recently with Totally Killer, which was Back to the Future, but Scream. And this one, of course, Freaky Friday, but Scream. So the idea here is a high school girl accidentally swaps bodies with a middle-aged serial killer, known as I think he's the Blissfield Butcher.
Which is wrong on so many levels, but also so right for this film, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, this kind of got done in the Rob Schneider, the 2006, I think, the 2003-2004 Rob Schneider comedy, The Hot Chick, with Rob Schneider and Rachel McAdams, kind of did this gag already. But here you get it with Catherine Newton as the teenager and Vince Vaughn, of course, playing against type as the serial killer. And of course, the fun of this comes from Vince Vaughn having to pretend to be a teenage girl, which is just hilarious. Like, absolutely. I mean, Catherine Newton being a badass serial killer, it's funny in and of itself. She's witty, she's funny, she's got the goods. But it's Vince Vaughn trying to be a teenage girl that just makes the film unmissable. You can see this Saturday night on Film 4 again from me. It's the second one from me on Film 4, at 11:25. Like I said, it's called Freaky. It's from Christopher Landon, who also made Happy Death Day. So if you've seen that one, you sort of know the tone they're going for. Got a clip for you, and this is, this is the teenage girl in Vince Vaughn's body with her mates running into the serial killer. Here you go.
Confused you won't be, but it is freaky.
Guys, he's here somewhere. He's wearing my body and he's wearing my face. He's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. And if we don't capture him first, God knows how many people he's gonna kill. Whoa. What am I wearing?
I'm actually really liking this for you.
Stop right there.
Wow, that's a great... I mean, I want to see that all over again, having heard that clip from it, because it's a fine old high-concept horror film, this one, which I love. Now, this next one is another game-changer for the movies. If the 80s gave us, of course it did, Eddie Murphy, the 90s, in fact 1990, gave us Home Alone, a great Christmas film, a great comedy, a great slapstick comedy, one of the... a slew of films that John Hughes released when he was like king of the teen and young, pre-teen and teen box office. It's benefiting this. Of course, Macaulay Culkin is great as the stay-at-home boy. The family is great. But Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern as the two incompetent bad guys. I think I'm right. If memory serves, I think Joe Pesci's character name is Harry Lime. Whether it's a nod to the third man or not. It's weird. And Marv Merchants is, of course, the Daniel Stern character. You've all seen this, folks, but it's a cracker. It's on this weekend. Tomorrow, 6:45 on Film 4. Basically, Macaulay Culkin is left home alone. His mum's racing back to get him. John Candy has a brilliant cameo as a leader of a poker band who's just really a brilliant cameo by him. And of course the thieves, you can see Joe Pesci at times having to restrain himself from swearing, remembering this is a PG film. It's a PG film. Great slapstick, great violence, very funny indeed. Nothing says Christmas to me like getting a full pot of paint smack in the face and breaking your nose after you've had your hair and your hat blown off with a blowtorch. It's Home Alone. It's on tomorrow, 6:45 on Film 4. Here's a chunk of the trailer.
'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the home, one boy would discover he'd been left all alone.
I made my family disappear. Kevin! Yes! Get that little creep! Don't worry, Mom, I'll get him for you. You guys give up? Or you're thirsty for more?
Hey, Mum, I'm eating junk and watching rubbish. Keep the change, you filthy animal. So many great quotes in that film, were there not? So that's a great comedy recommendation. I think you'll enjoy that. I'm sure you will if you haven't seen it before. Where have you been hiding? And we go now to Sunday, which is, of course, Remembrance Sunday. Armistice Day is tomorrow, the 11th. Remembrance Sunday this Sunday. And I wanted to choose a film that BBC 3 are offering, 10 o'clock Sunday night. We don't often mention BBC 3, but they do show occasionally that they've got lots of their kind of original programming, which tends to be aimed at, shall we say, a younger teenage type audience. A bit uncertain about what they're after, but on this one, they've really hit the mark, because it's Sam Mendes' film from, I think, 2019 called 1917. When you look at it, it looks like it's done in one massive long single tape. Of course, they've used various effects and, the modern CGI techniques to do what Hitchcock achieved all those years and years and years ago in his one-take film called Rope. But this, of course, is far more dramatic. It's the First World War. And basically, it's very simple. Two young soldiers are tasked with telling a battalion not to, mount an attack because it's a trap and they're all going to be slaughtered. One of the people who may lose their lives is the brother of one of the young men who's racing through hell, basically, in the First World War. Benedict Cumberbatch pops up in this as well. It's not really a star vehicle, this. I mean, they're great actors in this. All give great performances. I think technically very brilliant. I saw it on the big screen and unusually for me, I felt it slightly outstayed its welcome. And I watched it again, and it caught my, I don't know, it held my attention much more on the small screen. Maybe because I wasn't quite as aware of, thinking surely there'd have been more men on the battlefield at that time. They either couldn't afford them, or else maybe they were worried about kind of spoiling a take. But it is a cinema making, a piece of cinema. It's a virtuoso effort, I think. What did you make of this when you first saw it, Van?
I liked the movie. I just wasn't quite as dazzled by the single take thing as I thought I would be. To be honest with you, in hindsight as well, I maintain that, and I'm also more impressed by the shorter 25-minute single take in Extraction 2 that we had this year, because I thought there were more moving parts. I thought that was a bit more of a complex effort in a shorter amount of time. But the performances are very good. The story is gripping. It is suspenseful. The single take shot, it is effective. It's not this great game-changing, defining thing that I think a lot of people were duped into thinking at the time. Like, I had a lot of people turn to me and saying, "Oh, it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Oh, I've never seen anything like it. Oh, how mind-blowing." Like, you don't watch enough movies, clearly, because we've been doing this in Bond movies now. It's just a thing. It's Sam Mendes. He loves a single take.
And if you do it for the whole movie, then it slightly dilutes the impact of it when you see it suddenly pop up for 10 or 15 minutes or whatever. But it's on Sunday night. If you've not seen it...
Hardcore Henry as well.
Exactly. And also, it's very involving emotionally, I think, which is difficult to pull off when you're making a film that's effectively a virtuoso bit of filmmaking. It's called 1917, BBC 3, 10 o'clock Sunday nights. Here's a burst of the trailer to get you in a Remembrance Sunday type respectful mood.
There is only one way this ends. Last man standing.
I'm going back to see my father.
We need to keep moving. Come on.
I'm going there, no more to run.
We can't possibly
don't get there in time, we will lose 1,600 men. Your brother among them. Good luck.
Good luck. They're very understated British stiff upper lip way, of course. So that's my final recommendation for Remembrance Sunday, 10 o'clock, BBC 3, Sunday night. Where are you taking us finally, Van?
I'm just going to say, incidentally, because I'll lose my film critic creds if I don't point out that Roger Deakins' cinematography in 1917 is the bomb. It is. It's absolutely incredible. Sorry. Anyway, on to my final pick, which is Sunday night, 11:15 on 5 Star. One of my favourite franchises ever. And it's coming back, and now the actor strike has ended this past couple of days. It's finally going to go into production. We're getting the 6th one of these, but we're going to talk about the first one. It's Final Destination from the year 2000, directed by James Wong of Morgan and Wong fame. They were sort of the rising star bad boys of the screenwriting, producing side of TV and low-budget film in the late 1990s. They came up on the X-Files, and they broke into movies with Final Destination. Which incidentally began life as an X-Files episode by a writer named Jeffrey Reddick. He wrote it on spec. Basically, it was a standard X-Files episode. He wrote it as a sort of attempt to get a TV agent. A mate of his at New Line said, you know what, why don't you try turning this into a movie? It's really good. He did. He reversed the point of view to be from the victim's POV rather than Mulder and Scully. So there are still two investigating agents in the movie, but it's, they're kind of background characters now. And New Line, where his mate worked, snapped it up, and of course got two guys who cut their teeth on the X-Files to make their feature debuts on this. And it stars future Stan actor Devon Sauer as Alex, a high school kid who has a premonition during a school field trip to Paris of their plane crashing. Causes a scene, gets them all kicked off the plane, only for death to then stalk them one by one after the plane blows up anyway, and kill them all in random ways in order to restore the balance. It's good fun. They've made 4 sequels to date. The 5th one is going to production now. So yeah, enjoy this one. It's good fun. You must have seen some of these.
I've seen them all, in fact, and the one I remember seeing and really enjoyed was the 3D one, because I like 3D. Yes. Very gimmicky, when some of these body explosions and all the bones fly towards you, which is a rather haunting special effect. I mean, the only thing, I'm going to watch this again, and of course it's a great movie, but I wonder whether the impact will be slightly reduced given how inventive and extreme some of the deaths have been in the following 4 sequels, if that makes sense. Well, they've certainly ramped it up, have they not?
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I run that monthly screening event series at the Crowbar. We did the most recent one we did was last week. We did the world's first ever interactive Choose Your Fate edition of Final Destination 3, in which you can choose how the characters die.
Right. And
which is an actual thing. Yeah, they actually put that on the DVD.
The bloodthirsty options, I suppose, are they? The most bloodthirsty ones are the ones chosen.
It is Laughter Fate, but you know what? It was good fun. We got the audience very hyped for it, and we had people picking how innocent teens died. And what more do you want from a night of horror fun? So say, Final Destination, Sunday night, 5 Star at 11:15. Watch this, and you will stick around, proverbially speaking, for another 4 of these to come, definitely.
And we've got off screen to talk about as well, I think. What's happening for you later on today?
Off screen on podcast platforms from 8 a.m. Adam Ball and I are back, and we get to talk about the Marvels this week. There's a new Marvel movie. Captain Marvel is back in the Marvels alongside Photon, I think she is, and Ms. Marvel. Good fun. Always happy to talk about that, and also a great French thriller this week's out called Anatomy of a Fall. Recommend that one.
Looking forward to hearing that. Always well worth a download. The fantastic off-screen podcast. Now, we haven't had the clip yet for Final Destination. What's occurring in the selection? The nice kind of tasty selection bit you've chosen for us.
I have got the lavishly voiced Mr. Tony Todd, the Candyman himself, as the mortician, telling the teens exactly what death has in store for them.
Don't sleep well. Do have nightmares. Here we go.
Every single move we make, from the mundane to the monumental, the red light that we stop at or run, the people we have sex with or won't with us, the airplanes that we ride or walk out of. It's all part of death's sadistic design, leading to the grave.
Design? Does that mean if you figure out the design, you can cheat death?
Alex, you've already done that by walking off the plane. Your friend's departure shows that death has a new design for all of you. Now you have to figure out how
Gulp. That was Van's final selection, of course. Van's back with us next week. Make sure you download the Off-Screen podcast, a fantastic listen, of course. He's always a great guest of a Friday, and we're live till 5 on talkSPORT and talkRADIO. News and sport at the top of the hour, then Shaban Ahern to save the show and save the station.
Jim White and